Do you want to kick off, or do you want me to?
You can kick off this time. You interrupt me the last couple of times, so I'll just let you do it.
This all the time. I don't interrupt, Scotty. I don't know where you've got this from, mate. I never interrupt. Never interrupted anyone in my own life, especially you. Hey, I know better than that. I don't know what you're on about.
You're supposed to be a journalist. You're supposed to understand ask the question, get the answer.
Get the follow-up in. Hey,
yeah.
Hold the feet to the fire. Don't let him off the hook, even if he's your mate introducing a show that you're on. Get in there quick. I'm going to just stop you there, Scotty. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What? What's he on about? Trying to introduce our show, you'd have to.
Well, there goes the idea of trying to not swear on this episode.
Yeah, sorry, mate. We'll try and tone it down. We will. We'll have a go. Not swearing, but maybe not swearing as much as we do.
Yeah, you did very well on the last one. You were spelling the swear words. I thought that was very grown up of you.
Yeah, I try. Yeah, to see you next Tuesday. I always have a bit of a problem saying that one. I don't have a problem with the T word, as obviously I've just shown. But I don't know, the C word, I've never been a big fan of saying it out loud on camera or on audio. Yeah. I don't know what that is. Maybe I'm a bit of a prude deep down.
I don't know. Americans hate that word more than we do, though, don't they? That, like, in America, it is really, really offensive. But here, I think that's probably the most British swear word.
Do you know it reminds me when Tony says it to Carmela about Big Pussy's wife? Do you remember?
Yeah.
You can tell that once. And she says that what? And
goes, yeah. And that's the most scared he is of Carmela the whole way through.
I know. When he says the C word, he's like, "Oh, they're cheating on me and killing people. I don't mind." But you start dropping C bombs, me and you were having a drama. So that just sort of highlights it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
kick off.
Welcome to Scotty and Motty. I'm Jay. That's Scotty. I got it right. And today we're looking at our top 5 80s films. We like to do a top 5 every week. And this week it's top 5 80s films, the decade that brought us Home Alone, John Hughes films, obviously, Die Hard, Top Gun, and better films than that we're going to look at. Scotty, you're going to kick off. What's your first choice here for the top 5 80s films? What have you got for me?
Right, okay. I thought that I came up with the idea of the top 80s films, but I went downstairs and I thought that's a massive brief to try and there are, when you look at the greatest films of the 80s, there are a hell of a lot. And I've actually put a tweet out just before we came on, and it's just gone mad on my Twitter handle, and I've changed my mind about 400 times. But I'm keeping to the list. So I narrowed the brief down to 80s films that played a sort of part when I was growing up. So ones that I watched a lot when I was growing up. May not be the greatest films in the 80s, but when I was growing up, they were sort of always on at the same time.
This is similar to the music thing we did.
Yeah.
When we did debut albums. It's not necessarily the best debut album you've heard. It's something that meant something to you. Yeah. So there's a similar theme going on here. I get where you're coming from, mate. Yeah, so fair play.
Okay, cool. So the first one that I'm going to talk about, and this is very spooky. Like we said, we discussed last night we were going to do this show, and I pretty much just banged my 5 across to Jay. And the first one was this, Lost Boys. And obviously today, the age of 80, unfortunately, Joel Schumacher has passed away after a year. I think he was cancer he passed away from in the end, wasn't it?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think so. But it's just bizarre timing that's come around. But Lost Boys for me I think that was the first sort of horror comedy film that I was allowed to watch by my parents. So I was allowed to watch that loads when I was a kid, and it was always on. It was like a. If you've not seen it, it's like Twilight with decent actors and a plausible plot, as plausible as you can get with vampires.
My missus is gonna be having a go at you, and you know how much she loves you, but she's gonna be you're gonna get a strongly worded tweet for saying that.
Bring it on, Warner.
She's obsessed with Twilight.
It's the Twilight Bobbins, mate.
Funnily enough, right, I mentioned this to her tonight that Joel Schumacher passed away, and that I said it's weird because Scotty had chosen the Lost Boys, and she said, like, what's the Lost Boys? I said it's a vampire film. I said, unlike Twilight, I joked. I said it's a good vampire film, and then she pointed out to me, and I didn't know this. This is quite disturbing that I didn't know. Our youngest daughter is named after a character in Twilight. I just found that out tonight.
Is that Esme?
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's where I've only got the name from. So yeah, my daughter's named after someone in Twilight, which is it's a bit of a revelation. I'm not bothered. I like the name anyway. But no, the Lost Boys. I've seen it a few times, but it's been a little while. It's sort of vampires in like the Midwest or something. Is it this?
It's in like basically these two brothers moved to Santa Cruz, which I think is in California, but it's not it's not like the Hollywood part of California. So they moved to this town, unbeknown that there are a group of teenage vampires going around killing everyone. And I think when they first move in, the scenes like they're driving in and they see on graffiti on the wall saying "Murder Capital of the World," because I think around the time that it was set in, there was a huge serial killer going around Santa Cruz around the same time. So they go into there, and it's just these two brothers, and the older one falls in love with this. I think she's a half vampire. See, the thing is, I'm not really a massive fan on horror films or any sort of sci-fi, but this one always sorts of, you know, when you're a young kid and something, you attach yourself to something, and no matter what, you know, I still love Crisscross's Jump. You know what I mean? Because it went.
Why are you wearing your clothes backwards?
It is, and why I have my hair braided. If you go back on my Instagram account. Anyway, moving on. So it's like the really good film. This is when Kiefer Sutherland is the lead vampire in it. Do you remember Kiefer Sutherland in it? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Kiefer Sutherland and the Coreys, aren't they in it? Corey Haim, Corey Feldman.
I could never tell. Like I can tell by the face, but I could never tell the surname. I just know one of them was friends with Michael Jackson.
Yeah, Feldman.
And then was it Feldman? Yeah. And then Corey Haim wasn't. But it's quite funny. It's your typical 80s sort of comedy in there. But also for me, the soundtrack's absolutely fantastic. And this is why I actually found this in a record shop. And if you can see there, it's Echo and the Bunnymen that do a cover of The Doors, People Are Strange. I never knew that. And it was only when I was sort of digging in the crates at some record shop and I was going through, and I was like, the fuck's that? And then it's like, no way. And I took it home. And it was actually produced by the keyboard player, Ray Manzarek, from The Doors, who produced the version of People Are Strange. So, yeah, so I've got that. And then today, so with Joel Schumacher dying, and today Echo and the Bunnymen have actually announced a 40-year anniversary greatest hits tour as well. So it's a bizarre sort of day around the Lost Boys. So I'm probably going to bang this on when I get home. But yeah, it's not dark or gory or stuff like that. It's very like a teen pop, I suppose, your best way to describe a teeny pop film of the 80s. Quick trivia though, do you know who was supposed to play the role of Kiefer Sutherland? Kiefer Sutherland's character, Jim Carrey.
Stop it! Really?
Yeah, Jim Carrey. Apparently, Jim Carrey, one of his first movie roles, he played in a vampire. He played a vampire in a film, and he was considered as being the lead role of what Kiefer Sutherland's character, I think, is called David. But Kiefer Sutherland, I think he's about 19 in this, but he's got the voice of Sean Dyche. It's just he always like Michael. Yeah, and these people drink blood in it, and then there's like these crazy frog brothers that work in a comic book store. I just really enjoy it. I think it's a really good film. The soundtrack's banging. Like I said, like when the Bunnymen, People Are Strange on there, and that's really good.
Yeah, do you know another bit of trivia, sort of tabloid-esque, that Kiefer Sutherland was engaged to Julia Roberts, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And she left. I don't know if she ditched him at the altar, but finished with him just before they were due to get married, and went on holiday with Jason Patrick.
Right. Okay. Really?
Yeah, and they were mates. This was after this, I think. This was after this film, and they were mates. And yeah, she sort of left him for his mate, basically. And then I think Erd and Jason Patrick eventually split up, or they didn't get together or whatever. But yeah, that was a bit of a love triangle there with America's Sweetheart. Yeah, Julia Roberts and
wow.
Jason Patrick and Kiefer Sutherland. You don't get more 80s-tastic than that. Those three. No, it is a great film, and it's worth watching as well. You know, you mentioned Joel Schumacher, and everyone, you know, will be talking about him and thinking about him, and it is one of his better films. He's very erratic. I think it's only right you be honest about someone, even when they've died.
Yeah.
Very up and down, Joel Schumacher. Some of his films are shocking, and some of them are brilliant. He's very, I tweeted, he's very good for me. These John Grisham adaptations, The Client and No Time to Kill.
Yeah.
People have struggled to adapt John Grisham and do it properly, and he did it really well. But no, this is one of his best films. It's definitely worth checking out. And as you said, whenever I think of that film, I automatically think of People Are Strange. I think of the soundtrack, and I think the comedy element as well is in there, like that horror comedy. Because that was quite a big thing, wasn't it, in the 80s? You saw a few films like that, like Fright Night and like Gremlins and this, where the thing
it became a genre in itself, didn't it? I suppose the closest we've had to it in our time was it's like Shaun of the Dead. It's probably very similar in that sense. But yeah, Fright Night as well. I used to love that one. That was a decent
that was good. They remade it, didn't they? Fright Night with who's in it? Colin Farrell. Is it Colin Farrell? Yeah.
Yeah, Colin Farrell plays the bad vampire in it. I think.
Yeah.
They're not very good though, are they? The remakes.
No, I don't.
I didn't think it was great. Nightmare on Elm Street, I didn't think was any good.
No, I think the sort of there's something sinister about these films in the 80s. I don't know. It's because when we watched them when we were kids, but it has that little bit of scariness in it. Do you know what is missing from the remakes? I think I don't know. I just find it a bit.
I was thinking with obviously we're both 80s babies. I think you've seen more. You've seen all the 80s, didn't you, Jay? Weren't you January?
Yeah, literally, just scraped into being an 80s baby.
There's a t-shirt for you. I saw all the 80s.
Missed the first 2 weeks and that was it.
But there was still this weird. I don't know. There definitely was in my family because we lived in South Manchester. But it was the Myra Hindley and that Ian Brady. We still felt that in our family, in terms of there would talk about if you're out in the park for too long and stuff. So this scary shit's going on out there. So they always did have a sinister sort of edge.
Well, you think about it, it would have been 12, 13 years after, was it, or 15 years after the Moors murder? So it's still something that we still talk about 9/11, and that was 20 years ago almost. So for that community sort of thing, it's going to be something that obviously is going to be prevalent. And if you're a parent, then of course you're going to bring that up. So I get that, mate. And I think there was a sort of an element of just, the 80s was a strange time, wasn't it? And I suppose when you're a kid as well, and you're watching these films when you shouldn't really be watching them because you're still too young, but you watch them anyway. It can put you on the edge of your seat. But no, I love those horror comedies, and that was one of the best. And as I said earlier, Joel Schumacher, if you're going to get an introduction into him, you've got to start from near the beginning. I know he did films before this, but that's a good way to start off. And, it does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? It's a laugh,
definitely,
and it's scary, and it's it's an enjoyable couple of hours to spend your time. No, I love it. Do you know what? You made me think of something there because I've got 5 films here, and you mentioned there that The Lost Boys was one of the first or one of the main ones for the horror comedy genre. So a film that sort of kick-started the action comedy genre in a way was Beverly Hills Cop, and that's one of the films I'm going to choose. Now, one of the reasons I choose Beverly Hills Cop, I wanted to pick an Eddie Murphy film for starters because I think in the 80s Eddie Murphy he was a massive part of my childhood watching films. He was in so many good films in the 80s. People almost forget. Trading Places, Coming to America, The Golden Child, which I actually thought was a really good film.
I love The Golden Child.
Yeah, he did. He was really consistent in the 80s, Eddie Murphy. He had a load of hits. But the film that proper sort of took him into the stratosphere was Beverly Hills Cop, which almost gave birth to the action comedy genre. And he, funnily enough, I've known a little bit of the backstory to this because I've read a book on it. And he was the third choice or something. At first, it was going to be a straight sort of action film. And I think they were the first suggestion was Clint Eastwood, then it was Sylvester Stallone, then they wanted Mickey Rourke, but Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer were the producers, and they went on to do stuff like Top Gun, Days of Thunder, The Rock, Crimson Tide. So they were very sort of powerhouse production pair. Don Simpson's dead now, but Jerry Bruckheimer obviously went on to have massive success on his own as well. But they... I think Don Simpson or one of them had the idea of maybe we can make it, a bit more comedy because Eddie Murphy's star was on the rise. Get him in instead, and it can become like an action comedy, and that's what they did. And it's just, I don't know, because sometimes you can dismiss these action comedies, can't you, from the 80s? But this is for me. I just love this film, and I love Eddie Murphy in it. He's just fantastic. And it's just, it's been because it's sort of nearly 30 years old or whatever. And we've seen loads of Eddie Murphy films, and we've seen these cops in a fish out of water scenario before. We've seen it all so many times, but this is sort of one of the first, and it's one of the best as well. It's just really entertaining. It's really funny, and it's helped as well by a fantastic supporting cast. Judge Reinhold's in it. He's really funny. John Aston's in it, and it's got. I love cameos, man. I'm always a big fan of little funny cameos or great cameos. And Bronson Pinchot has got a cameo in it as Serge. It's just like this shop assistant in the art shop.
No, I know what you mean.
Get the fuck out of here! It's a great little cameo. And it's just, I think Stephen Burkoff's the baddie. He's really good in it. And it's just a really enjoyable film, and one of those ones where you've got sort of Eddie Murphy at like I said, at the top of his game. There's a guy in it as well. I think I'm trying to think who he is, who acts as Victor Mate. Sorry, one of the guys. He's in it's not Paul Reiser. I can't remember his. Oh yeah, is that him? Sorry, mate. I'm just having. Yeah, Jonathan Banks. Anyone that's watched Breaking Bad, you'll. One of the main characters in Breaking Bad is played by Jonathan Banks, and he's in this as well. He plays like the main henchman in it. And what I liked about the 80s as well is some of these films, the action is sort of all right. It's a bit Hollywood.
Yeah,
Hollywood fine, if you get what I mean, but it's still relatively realistic because it's before CGI, it's before all that came in. So you're not, you've got more sort of stunt scenes with actual stunt men and real life crashes rather than just creating it on a computer. So you get all that, and then you just get Eddie Murphy with a half decent script, and he makes it a little bit better than it is with just his acting and the way he is, his confidence, and it's just he has great chemistry with Judge Reinhold and Ronnie Cox as well. He's in it as the chief of the Beverly Hills Police Department, and it's just a really funny, enjoyable film. And the soundtrack is it's the most 80s soundtrack ever.
Oh, the synths.
Yeah, it's proper like it is. It's proper like synthesized, and it was what's his name? I'm trying to think of who did it. The guy that did the soundtrack, is it Jan Hammer? I think it was. I might be wrong there. But then you get stuff like there's Nasty Girl by Vanity Six and things like that are in it. It's proper 80s pop-tastic. But yeah, as a film, just to sort of sum up the 80s, it does everything. And Beverly Hills and that sort of era in the mid 80s sort of epitomized a lot of what was going on, and he sort of sees a lot of that. It's very much like you have these sort of films like Crocodile Dundee was a massive success. It's a similar theme.
Not a knife,
yeah. He comes from Australia and he's put into New York and that sort of fish out of water thing, and we had a few of these in the 80s, but this was the best one. And like I said, it's a great action comedy. It's funny, the action's enjoyable, and the characters are likable, and the way they riff with each other. There's just loads of good stuff in it. And yeah, I just thought, what, it'd be remiss of me not to put in an Eddie Murphy film in here, because he is such a great actor in the 80s. He was, people look at him in the 90s, he was a bit more erratic, a bit up and down, and in the noughties as well. Some of his films have been terrible. Some of them have been decent, but some have been dreadful. But this is amazing. It's just him at his best. Really enjoyable film. And if you wanted to just dip back into the 80s, I think Beverly Hills Cop's a great place to start.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Eddie Murphy was probably one of the biggest superstars of the 80s in terms of acting. Like you said, the sequels weren't bad as well, which is something you can't usually say about action comedies. Usually, it's usually the first one's decent, and the rest are just trying to get some more money from movie going audiences. But yeah, I love that. Eddie Murphy's laugh as well. I can hear that now. That's it. Yeah, exactly.
It's funny because I'm a massive Richard Pryor fan, and he never got a vehicle that did him justice. He did. Some people say stir crazy, but I don't think it did for me. If you actually watch that film, he's good in it, but he's not got a lot to do in it. And it's a shame because he never really got a film that highlighted his talents. If you watch Richard Pryor, his best films are arguably stand-up films, Live on Sunset Strip and what have you. So it's a shame because when I watch these Eddie Murphy films, Eddie Murphy got films that did him justice. He got scripts and, and when finally they did work together in Harlem Nights, which wasn't a very good film, Eddie Murphy wrote that with Richard Pryor in mind. Richard Pryor starred in it with him. But again, it's a shame because that was the first film in the 80s that Eddie Murphy made that was not very good, that wasn't a success, and it's the one that starred Richard Pryor. So it's great to see someone like Eddie Murphy, who is talented, having a film where his talents are allowed to sort of flourish. And it's the director, Marty Brest, who just, I've seen the making of it, and he just sort of let him get on with it. He said, we have the scripts. If he went off scripts, I don't mind that. If he improvised, I didn't mind that. He was the star of the show, and I just let him do his thing, and he did it really well. I think it shows it really works well.
I mean, Eddie Murphy's comedy is a lot like that. He does kind of a lot of characters in his comedy, wasn't it? So you can sort of see the natural progression from stand-up. Because sometimes you see comedians, then they do films, and it doesn't really work. But because Eddie Murphy was so good at creating characters, I mean, you love me, Eddie.
Fuck you. Fuck you, Eddie.
Yeah. What you done for me lately, Eddie? And so you can see the natural move over into the movie world where it doesn't work sometimes. I think Chris Tucker sort of did well with because Rush Hour was very much based on the similar sort of premise, wasn't it, of Beverly Hills Cop, and all them buddy movies that sort of went on after that. But I think Beverly Hills Cop did definitely break them all. But yeah, but I've not watched that in ages. and now I've got Eddie Murphy's laugh and the soundtrack in my head.
It's just there's so many little scenes like when he's getting into the Beverly Hills Hilton. If you can remember that scene where that's just really fun. There's just loads of little scenes in it where he absolutely smashes it. And yeah, you know, some of Eddie Murphy's comedy. You talk about his stand-up and stuff. When I was a kid, Delirious, his stand-up was one of my favorites. But you'll struggle to find that now all the way through because it'll have been edited. Because some of it is just, it's not fit for purpose anymore. You won't get away with that. That's the thing. You're saying. Yeah,
that's the thing. It was amazing that he managed to talk about the stuff he did as a comic, and yet still get these roles as in blockbuster Hollywood. Because sometimes when you're that close to the bone, Hollywood won't touch you, I suppose. But yeah, he smashed it. Eddie Murphy smashed the 80s. But Trading Places and Coming to America again. Coming to America is one of my favorite films of all time. But I knew you were doing this one, so I thought we'll not spend another episode on Eddie Murphy.
We're all day just talking about Eddie Murphy because you know.
There we go. We'll top 5 Eddie Murphy jokes next time. Right, moving on. This one, I was looking at the Goonies because that was a great 80s film, and then a lot of them young lads who were hanging around together and they go on adventures. And the Goonies was great, and I loved it. And Stand By Me is another one, but this one is when people ask me what my favorite films are. The Godfather 1 and 2 are just combined as one. And also it's another Francis Ford Coppola film that also is in my top 3. And that is The Outsiders, which came out in 1983, I think. Have you seen The Outsiders, Jay, before I move on?
You know what? It's one of them, mate. I watched it years ago. And I know it was yeah, sorry. I need to rewatch it because I made it for all sense of purpose. This is, I know I've not really Googled it. Is this one with Matt Dillon? And
this has got when I think when
Mickey Rourke in it as well. Am I getting it wrong?
No, that was Mickey Rourke, and that was another great film that was in the 80s. That was Rumblefish, where Mickey Rourke. I think is that Coppola. But that's,
no, it is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
that's one of the most beautiful films I've seen. That because it's all in black and white, but Mickey Rourke's colorblind. But the only thing that's color in the film are these rumblefish that you can see in the shop window. But that's an amazing film. But no, this one, when you're talking about heartthrobs of the 80s, this had Patrick Swayze in it, Matt Dillon, Tom Cruise, Ralph Macchio, Rob Lowe, and Emilio Estevez. It was like Young Guns before Young Guns. But it's like the book actually got banned when it came out because it's based on a true life story in Oklahoma, I think it is. And it's about these two gangs called the Greasers, obviously because they've got greasy hair, and then the other gang's called the Sox, which is a shit name for a fucking for a gang. Oh, the Sox are after me. Oh no!
Don't mess with them, or they'll get them against the underpants and get a fight. You don't want to get in between.
But he's pretty much just pitting off these. It's like a class divide between the posh boys that can, you are going to go on and live in the picket fence and so on, and these these greasers that live the other side of the tracks. And the main characters are a lad called Johnny. Is it Johnny and Ponyboy? Ponyboy lives with two older brothers. I think Patrick Swayze and Rob Lowe is Ponyboy, and Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise, you can see how much work he's had done. When you look at Tom Cruise in this film to where he is now, is just considerably like the nose, the teeth. I think he's probably grew about another 5 inches with the heels. But the film's fantastic, and it's got one of my. I was talking about this on Twitter before. There's only 2 films I cry at, and I always cry at the end of this film. And without spoilers, say spoiler alerts if you're not seeing it.
Spoiler alert, yeah.
So Johnny Ponyboy actually writes the book about his life. And then they end up getting this gang fight, and Ralph Macchio's character Johnny ends up stabbing someone to save somebody else and has to go on the run and hide somewhere. And he tries to save all these kids in this house and ends up getting burnt. And then Ponyboy comes in to see him, and he says the famous line, "Stay gold, Ponyboy." And I'm like, woo! Just like that, and Marley and Me, and I'm done, mate. Because honestly, every single time I've seen this film, and it's also got one of the. When I was looking at my top 5, everything has a soundtrack. You know what I mean? I can just tell I'm more music orientated, but I never realized looking back at my favorite films, the soundtrack's always an important not an important thing in it. And then this one is a track called "Stay Gold" by Stevie Wonder, and it's all reminiscent and nostalgic about growing up and stuff. And the Goonies was in with a shout, but this. I didn't know it was a Francis Ford Coppola film until later on when I got into The Godfather, and you look back through his back catalogue, and I'm like, shit, no way is that? Because I'm not too sure there aren't many comparisons between The Godfather. There's no severed horses' heads or anything, or it's not even shot that dark. But he always said he wanted to make a coming-of-age film, and I think because the book got banned, that probably had a lot of that had an attraction to Francis Ford Coppola because of the dark side of it. But it's a really, really good film, and you watch it back now and you can see like the class divide that's still there and evident in the Midwest. I mean, across America. Fantastic performances throughout, and like, can you imagine getting the budget today to have them actors in?
Mate, do you know what I mean? If you were to do that now, who would that be like now? That'd just be, you know, whoever's the sort of the biggest stars in the world are, or the young stars. I can't even tell you. Do you know what I mean?
No.
You're probably looking at, I don't know, mate. I don't even know.
That was like the event. That's like the Avengers lineup for the 80s.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, it is. I mean, when you mention it, like Patrick Swayze, Tom Cruise. The Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio, hey.
Yeah, he actually. I think he got nominated for. I don't know if it's Academy Award, but his performance in that, you so far removed from the Karate Kid performance. It's really good. And it's a shame what happened with his career, didn't it? Because I think the Karate Kid sort of killed it, really, didn't it? I think it was hard to escape from that mold, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I might be getting this wrong. Didn't he have something wrong with him? Right, he didn't age properly or something. I don't know. I might be confused. I saw Ralph Macchio had some sort of
like Benjamin Button stuff.
Like, let me just have a look now, because I don't want people are probably going, what are you talking about? I might have this completely wrong, to be honest with you. One sec, let me have a look. I can't find anything. I might have just made that up, to be honest with you, but.
That's fine.
But yeah, because he obviously looks a lot older now looking at his pictures. But yeah, he's right.
there's that theory going.
To be honest with you, I don't even know why I thought that. Anyway, because he's in My Cousin Vinny, innit? And he looks a little bit older than he does in the Karate Kid in that. So yeah, I don't know why I thought that. So apologies there to Ralph Macchio if you're watching. I think I'm probably getting him confused with Gary Coleman. But no, his career, like, other than the Karate Kids, and as I mentioned, my Cousin Vinny, I don't think he did a lot after that in terms of, you know, big films. He did obviously a lot of films, but nothing where you'd be like, you know, those were sort of monster hits, weren't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, that film. I mean, the funny thing with Coppola is, I often think with Coppola, after Apocalypse Now, he didn't do any great films, and that sort of blows that out of the water, because I always think he did some good films. You know, Godfather 3 is a good film. When
did Apocalypse Now come out? Was that after Godfather 2?
Yeah, it was 79. Apocalypse Now. It took 3 years to make. In all, it was a mad shoot. Everything went wrong. It took about 3 years from sort of cradle to grave to get together. But yeah, I always have this sort of thing that, did he ever really get to the heights that he'd hit in the 70s, post the 70s? And I think he didn't, but I need to check that film out again, because that, obviously, you wax lyrical about it, blows it out of the water.
I mean, that and Rumblefish both came out in the same year, mate, and they're both directed by him. And Rumblefish is another fantastic film. It's a lot like, do you remember Sin City? Yeah. So it's a little bit like that, but it's shot in just black and white film. But it's a beautiful film. And Matt Dillon I thought he was another great actor in the 80s, but he didn't seem to have the projection of a career of, say, like a Swayze or stuff like that. But I think Matt Dillon, he was tinkering on the Mickey Rourke Let's Try Loads of Sniff game one. I think because Dillon had the reputation, he was going to be the next James Dean, wasn't he, in the 80s? I think that sort of bad boy image. I think it caught up to him. But a great actor.
Yeah, he was. The funny thing with Coppola is, I think as well, what his career might have suffered from a little bit is he lost a lot of money. He started his own studio, didn't he, American Zoetrope, and he lost a lot of money on it. He invested all his money into it, and I think they released One from the Heart, and he bankrolled it, and it was a flop. So he ended up doing a lot of jobs for hire, where he come in and he just directs, you know, and some of the films he made, I don't think they're doing justice. You know, films like even Bram Stoker's Dracula, I didn't rate that much, or Jack. Do you know films like that where you think, is this really a Francis Ford Coppola film? But those ones you spoke about, I need to see them, because those are two I've not seen. And I think, you know, whenever I think of, like I said to you, I think of Coppola post Apocalypse Now, I just think of him almost like a director for hire, who was living off past glories, but obviously he wasn't if he's done stuff like that, and it's well worth watching. And just for that cast alone, I think anyone who's got even a fleeting interest in 80s films needs to see that, and I have, so I will.
Cool. What's your next one, mate?
My next one, let me just get rid of my Ralph Macchio tab. Just making things up now about people. Didn't he have this thing where he couldn't grow, get older? Oh no, he didn't, because I've seen him in lots of things where he's old.
There's a title for the podcast: The Age-Defying Ralph Macchio. I'm Ralph Macchio. Disease.
What's going on? Apologies, man. I don't know we're recording this late, and I think it's getting to me. That's my excuse.
That'll be it.
Yeah. The next one I'm going to choose is one of my favorite comedies ever, and it's one that's almost gone under the radar. Not a lot of people have seen this, and it's a Gene Wilder vehicle, The Woman in Red. Now, there was this thing that went on in the 80s. Lots of sort of similar films came out, or films based on similar things, and a lot of what happened in the 80s is American studios started remaking French films. Like we saw it with the most famous one is Three Men and a Baby, which was originally a French film, and they remade it.
I didn't know. I never knew that.
Yeah, so there was like this thing of there was a big film in France. Some studios think, okay, we'll remake it with an American cast, and there's a sort of ready-made idea there, isn't there? There's a script there. We just tweak it, and then away we go. And obviously, Three Men and a Baby was the most successful. There's a few that did that, and The Woman in Red is one of these. I think it was based on a French film, I'm pretty sure it was. And it stars Gene Wilder and Kelly LeBrock, who she's sort of like another 80s star. She was in this, she was in Weird Science, but didn't really. I think she ended up marrying Steven Seagal, bizarrely. But she didn't really do lots and lots of films or have a massively successful career. But for a time in the 80s, she was like a proper 80s pin-up.
Was she like the one who came in Weird Science that they created? Is that she was the model they created, and she's in this film, and this it's just so funny. This film, it's got Gene Wilder. It's also got his wife, Gilda Radner, was in it. Gilda Radner, sorry. She passed away not long after this, I think. But she's in it as well, and Charles Grodin's in it, who's one of my favorite actors as well. He's another one that a lot of people don't see a lot of his films, but in the 80s especially, he was in some great films. I'll get onto another one of his films later. But it's just basically, it's a story of this guy, Gene Wilder. He's an advertising executive, and one day Kelly LeBrock walks past him, and she. Have you ever seen The 7-Year Itch when Marilyn Monroe's skirt gets blown up? Yeah.
That happens with Kelly LeBrock.
Right.
And she does a little dance because it's blown her skirt up because she thinks no one's around. He sees her, falls in love with her, and then starts sort of chasing after her for the rest of the film. And he's a married man with kids, and he's trying to chase after Kelly LeBrock and hide it from his wife, and all this other stuff is going on as well. And it's just so funny. There's so many good scenes in it, and there's like, it deals with certain themes as well, because like Charles Grodin in the film, he's one of his mates, and it turns out he's gay. And obviously this is at a time when, being gay was still sort of, even though it was the 80s, still wasn't widely accepted. And he's got a group of friends, and it's like how they all react to it. There's another guy who's always cheating on his wife, and he gets caught out. And there's all sorts of themes going on, and about dealing with like midlife crisis. That's how they're all sort of, this group of friends they've got are all trying to deal with it. But it's just an hilarious film. It's just so many scenes in it that are just funny. That I remember watching this, and I watched it not so long ago, and it's still funny to this day. And you just crack up, and you've just got a group of actors there, the likes of Radner, the likes of Wilder, and the likes of Grodin, who are all top of the game and are all funny people, and they just bounce off each other. And it's just one of those films that sort of, you probably never heard of it, and if you actually bothered to watch it, sit down, you'd enjoy it. And if you find it, it's not earth-shattering. It's just in San Francisco, following what is essentially a bunch of sort of middle-class white guys going through midlife crisis. And when you're pitching that to a studio, they're probably going to go, yeah, right. It's based on a French film, and it's about these middle-class, middle-aged white guys. Stick Kelly LeBrock in and have a show in a bit of flesh, and we'll have it. But it's just hilarious, and it is. And Gene Wilder, I love Gene Wilder. And I think, I mentioned Stir Crazy before. Him and Richard Pryor and Stir Crazy were great together. Although I don't think it's not quite as good as a lot of people remember. I think it's a good film, not a great film, but Gene Wilder was always good stuff. He's great in Mel Brooks films. Young Frankenstein.
Was he in Blazing Saddles?
The Blazing Saddles, in Young Frankenstein. Absolutely superb in those films, and he's great in this. He's in almost every scene. He's just hilarious. He's just having fun. I think I might be wrong. I think he might have. Did he direct it? Yeah, he directed it as well. So it's basically, he's at the helm, and it's just a very, very funny film. And it's a sort of slice of America in the 80s as well. Like I said, dealing with all these themes that were going on in America. And it's just one of those. It's not the type of film where, I don't think it won any awards or anything like that, but it's just a very funny, enjoyable film. And Gene Wilder at the top of his game, he's an actor that, when he's good, he's a very funny man, and he's often is very good, and he's great in this. So it's worth checking out, definitely. If you've not heard of it or seen it, watch this, and you'll find it funny.
I've never heard of it before.
It's weird because Gene Wilder's a well-known actor. Charles Grodin is, Kelly LeBrock, even though she's not a megastar, but everyone's heard of her. And like you say, you've heard of Weird Science, which is the film that most people know her from. But this is, for me, a great film that she's in. Funny enough as well, Stevie Wonder, mentioned soundtracks, and Stevie Wonder, I Just Called to Say I Love You is in this film. I think this is part of the soundtrack. So it's probably more famous for that because that was such a big hit. I think if not Stevie Wonder's biggest hit. So that maybe slightly overshadowed the film. Most people will remember it. That's the film that Stevie Wonder had. I Just Called to Say I Love You. It's like Paul McCartney, No More Lonely Nights. No one remembers the film that's from, but they remember the song. But yeah, this is a similar thing. So don't let that put you off and think, it's got a good soundtrack. It's not. It's a really funny film, and again, it slips under the radar. But it's not slips under the radar, I don't think, because it's a poor film. I think it just slips under the radar because this is at a time when, in the mid-80s, you had these big budget, you had these blockbusters, you had the likes of, films we've spoken about, Eddie Murphy, Tom Cruise, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger coming to the fore. And then you've got this sort of small film set in Chicago with a bunch of character actors almost. And Gene Wilder, he wasn't a megastar. And it's a bit like it almost sort of disappears without a trace. But if you actually watch it, if you download it or watch it on stream it or whatever, you won't be disappointed. It's a very funny little quirky film.
Cool. I'll definitely check it out. The next one, I'll give a bit of a backstory. When we're talking about the Lost Boys, that was something that my parents were all right to let me watch. But everyone's got like an auntie or a relative that always lets you, it'll give you a bit of a drink at Christmas or let you swear or something like that. Now, my auntie Anne, she's not that much older than me. So she was all right letting me watch horror films and stuff. And she made me sit down and watch this film. And for me, people would say The Exorcist is the scariest film or whatever. But for me, the American Werewolf in London absolutely petrifies me every single time. Like, I can't go to Yorkshire without thinking about it. I live close to the moors here at the moment, so it really, really scares the shit out of me based on the back of this film. It's about two Americans called David and Jack that are hitchhiking across Yorkshire, which sounds like a shit holiday, really. I mean, if you live in America, you wouldn't come to Yorkshire. You wouldn't go, what do you want to do in the summer? Club it in a 30s at Benidorm? Nah, let's go backpacking across there.
You know what? That really annoys me, that, because I'm sick of every time I go on the Yorkshire moors, you can't help but bump into American tourists.
And this was John Landis. This actually came out the year I was born, so 1981, and it's a John Landis film. And again, we're talking about comedy and horror. This one went to both extremes because it can be really funny. There's a great scene where they go into, and this scene's played in a lot of films where you go into where the cowboy goes into the OK Corral and he's a stranger in the village and everyone turns around and looks to him. But this one, when the David and Jack go into this place called the Slaughtered Lamb, that's on these moors in deepest, darkest Yorkshire, and it's fuck all around, and they're covered in rain, and everyone just turns round, and it's just like, it's petrifying, but you can just feel the awkwardness. And it's a great cameo by Rick Mail, and in the bar. There's a few other well-known. There was another British actor who's in it. Who was in Band of Gold. I can't remember the guy's name at the moment.
I know that Brian Glover's in the bar.
Brian Glover's in it, and there was another guy, and who says the famous line, it's "Stick to the road, don't go on the moors," or something along them lines. Yeah. Anyway, needless to say, they go on the moors, and one of them gets absolutely murdered by this werewolf, and then the other one just gets mauled by it, and then actually turns into a werewolf. But the there's scenes where I think it was very inspirational for Michael Jackson's Thriller. I think when he's seen the makeup that was in this, and it's aged pretty well. I had done the last time I'd seen. I'm not too sure how it fares against CGI today, but it was the very first film to actually win an Oscar for makeup. I don't know the film had won a makeup award prior to American Werewolf in London. That was the very first one in 1981. But again, going on to soundtracks and a bit of context back into the back of my life. The song in this is Blue Moon. So
okay.
Yeah. So obviously we're about Man United fans. My dad's a massive Man United fan. But this is like when I'm watching this, I must be like 8 years old. So we're going like maybe 1989. I'm not massively clued up on what City fans sing or what United fans sing and the larger context of the song. So I'm in the pub. Because my dad's going playing pool nice to spend. That's where I went at the weekends. I'm just not going to lie about it. Explains a lot. So we used to go to the pub, and anyway, so I'd been watching this film, and I just started singing Blue Moon, and my dad turned round to me like, your boy gives you the look, and I'm thinking, shit, it's because of the werewolf. And I'm sat in the garret in Longsight, quite shaking like this because I'm thinking that I'm summoning this werewolf because I'm singing fucking Blue Moon, and it's not. It's because he's a United fan. All his mates are City fans. The next minute, all his mates Ray and all that in the pub start singing Blue Moon with him, and then let me in on the joke and stuff like that. But up until that point, I thought, shit.
I'm summoning the devil. I'm summoning the werewolf.
Yeah. It's still honestly. I could probably watched about 5 years ago. I think my missus bought me on DVD. But yeah, it still sort of haunts me. I think you've had the very first horror film that you see that petrifies you will always petrify you. Because my dad can't even see the trailer of The Exorcist now about running around and screaming like a panzer. It's just it's not the one. But yeah, so American Werewolf in London. So thank you, Auntie Anne, if you're watching this. But in fact, she probably brought me onto a lot. She was the auntie that had the cool music and let you do stuff. Do you know what I mean? So she was always great with music and stuff. Yeah, but Blue Moon. So that's whenever I hear Blue Moon, my first thought is werewolf and then City.
Good, that's probably better actually. To be fair, yeah. It's funny actually you mentioned John Landis and Michael Jackson because he directed Thriller, the video, and that video used to scare me when Michael Jackson turns into the zombie or whatever Michael Jackson. But I'm like you. I'm obviously very similar age, and I watched American Werewolf in London when I was a kid. Parenting and babysitting was mint in the 80s, wasn't it? It was just like, what's this film? Yes, come on, give you nightmares for the next 30 years, but watch it, you'll be all right. And I was the same. When Jack keeps appearing, you keep seeing Jack.
Yeah.
And he's decaying more and more, mate. I was having nightmares about that for a good 10 years. I'm telling you, yeah, it was really, really scary when he sees him in the cinema outside the cinema.
There's a great quote. What is it? And this is what I mean by comedy. And I think it's look at me sitting in a porno theatre in Piccadilly Circus talking to a corpse. And I'm sat there, have no idea what a porno is, but I know there's a werewolf and he's talking to a dead man.
So I used to be really genuinely scared about that all the time. Not porno films, obviously, but the Jack thing used to sort of really shook me. But yeah, that film it's great, as you mentioned. Comedy, and I think it's Rick. Is it Rick Baker, the special effects, the makeup guy, who he was really famous. Yeah, I think that was his first big film or one of his first big films, and he like you say, won an Oscar for it. I think he went on to win a few. I think he was behind a lot of the sort of the top films in terms of makeup artists in the 80s and the 90s. He was like the man of the sort of the go-to guy. And it's mad because if you watch that film as well, even though it's quite low budget, some of the stuff they're doing it in its 80s, when he's running around the Piccadilly Circus and stuff like that, it's pretty impressive, like some of it. And all right, you might sort of nitpick and say you can tell it's not real at times, but it's a really good film. It is scary and it is funny as well. Do you know what I mean? And I do enjoy that film. It's very much a film of its time. It's got that 80s feel to it, hasn't it? But there's a few sinister moments in it, like we said with Jack. And when they go in the slaughtered lamb, and then they're gonna leave, and he's asking to leave.
Yeah, and the thing with the nurse as well. I think there's a couple of scenes with the nurse where I think she's in the shower and then he turns around and then is it Jack that's in the shower or something like that?
Yeah, where he has a dream and then he wakes up and then it's still a dream and it's like that's like a double
that's
thing.
what I mean. It felt very ahead of its time. I think, you know, when you put it, compare it to the likes of, I don't know, Freddy Krueger was just seeing very sort of, I know it's Wes Craven, but he's like very sort of blockbuster Hollywood, if that makes sense. But I think because this was actually based in England as well, I think that brought it, obviously it is a lot closer to home, but it felt a lot more realistic, especially to a young lad in Longsight at the time, shitting himself. Blue,
you know, I forgot about that, you know, to be honest with you. I forgot about Blue Moon. But no, I always love that film, and I'm glad you picked it because it is a good one. And we don't want to be too overly American with our choices as well. So it's good to get some British films in there, at least one. I don't know about the rest of your choices, but I think all mine are American. Yeah. Sorry about that. My next one it's another film that, again, it almost goes under the radar, but it's just a film that I really enjoy, and it's a funny film. It's another action comedy, another buddy film. There's sort of ticking boxes here in terms of what went on in the 80s. There was lots of these types of films, but it's another one that was done really well and I really enjoyed, and it's called Midnight Run. And it's like Robert De Niro is a bounty hunter, and he has to get this accountant, this mob accountant, played by Charles Grodin again, who was in Woman in Red. And it's just basically those two traveling across America, and this sort of back and forth that goes on between them. They get themselves sort of in and out of scrapes, and they sort of the kind of friendship forms and all that sort of stuff. But this is just another film that's just really enjoyable. Again, it's funny. It's got the action scenes a little bit over the top, but they're quite enjoyable. And it's just one of those films where if you just want it to kill 2 hours, you sit down and watch it, you'll enjoy it. And again, I'm a big fan of sort of cameos and ensemble casts, and there's some really good actors in this. Dennis Farina, who's one of my favorite actors, is in it. Joe Pantoliano, who was in the Sopranos as Ralph, he's in it. Was in the Matrix as well, obviously. He's in it, and there's a few other sort of actors you'll recognise. John Aston's in it again as well, who's in Beverly Hills Cop. But this is mainly just about De Niro and Charles Grodin, and it's Marty Brest who made this, the guy that made Beverly Hills Cop, and he loves just to sort of let his actors just improvise a little bit. And I think because it was them two, he just sort of let them get on with it and go back and forth and riff with each other. And it's some really funny scenes. And this is a bit of a different film for De Niro because he doesn't often do action comedies. And when he does, sometimes when De Niro does comedy, it doesn't really come off. If I'm being honest, he's much more suited to the intense sort of, gangster or psycho or that sort of type roles. But he's really good in this. This is one of his best films. It really is. Charles Grodin's always good for his money. And it's a shame because Marty Brest was a great director. He did Beverly Hills Cop. He did this. I think he did Scent of a Woman. And then he did, he had a couple of flops, and he did, do you remember that film with Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck? Is it Jiggly?
Yeah, Giggly, something like that.
I think he directed that, and it more or less killed his film career. But this is one of his films in the 80s, and it's just really good. It's just enjoyable. It's one of those, it's a laugh. It's, two guys traveling across America, lots of action. The mafia are after him. The FBI are after him. Yaphet Kotto was in it as well as another actor that I love. And, it's nicely paced as well. There's always quite fast paced. There's lots going on. Moves along nicely. And those two together, they're hilarious. There's some really, really funny scenes between De Niro and Grodin as well. And there's enough sort of drama and action and a little bit of sadness as well and pathos in it to just keep going. But mainly it's just a very funny film and another enjoyable film, and it's one of those films that I think most people won't have heard of. You talk of De Niro, they'll think of like Raging Bull and Taxi Driver and Goodfellas. You mentioned Midnight Run, and a lot of them will be like, "Oh, I've not seen that," but it's worth checking out. It's one worth seeing. Yeah,
Midnight Run for me, I've never seen it all the way through. It's always that film that, you're flicking through the channels. It's always halfway through. I watched 20 minutes of it and I thought, it deserves to watch all of it from beginning to end. So this is probably I'd heard of it. My mate Danny Pitts is an artist and actually painted a scene of the two of them. I'll try and dig it out for you. But yeah, he absolutely, everyone I know who's seen Midnight Run absolutely raves about it. Do you know what I mean? Everyone has, but I just haven't seen it. And out of De Niro's catalogue, I've probably seen everything, even the shit ones. Do you know what I mean? I think De Niro was doing comedy I didn't think he was that bad in Analyze
this.
This the first one, and then but then he sort of playing off himself. Then he's playing a comedy version of himself anyway. But I know what you mean. But I'll definitely be checking that out. Hopefully not halfway through. Right, this next one, I thought it's the 80s, and we've got there's loads of romance films and stuff, and I thought I'll talk about this. And again, back to my Auntie Anne, this is one of her favourite films, so it was always on it all the time. And I think it's John Hughes who directed Pretty in Pink. And it's like a high school romance. Again, the soundtrack is phenomenal in this. I love this film majority for the soundtrack and the character Ducky that was played by John Cryer. He does a fantastic scene where he's in love with the woman who works behind the counter at a record shop. And I've only ever wanted in my life to work at a record shop. That's I'm done. Honestly, that'd be me. And that was that. And from this scene, actually, he walks in and does I think it's Otis Redding. It does I can't believe it. I'm pretty sure there's Otis Redding soundtrack. Sorry, Jay. Very fucking. It's Otis Redding.
I can't help you out because I've not actually seen this one.
Yeah, he does Otis Redding Try a Little Tenderness, and he sort of like mimes the voice, but he does all this whole dance routine and all this. It's amazing. It's so funny. But it's like a rom-com of the 80s. I don't think it's breaking the mold anywhere there, but it's quite funny. And there's a guy, the lead bad guy in it is a guy called Blake, I think, who was played by, you'll recognize this actor. He's called Molly Ringwald plays the lead character. She's the one with pink hair. Harry Dean Stanton's in it, who played everyone's dad pretty much in the 80s. When we need someone to play a drunk old angry dad. Let's get Harry in. James Spader. He plays a really and he's a great actor, James Spader.
Very good actor. Good shout. He's in a few films that I like. He's great. He's in Wall Street. He's got a part in that. He's in 2 Days in the Valley as well, I think. He's in loads of films. In Sex, Lies and Videotape. We spoke about that before. Yeah. He plays a good yuppie, James.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's pretty much what this is. It's this girl who's in love with this bloke, but a guy called Blake, and the James Spader character is Blake's best mate, and he's always looking down on the character. But it's for the attire, all the sort of yuppies are wearing the coats and then the sleeves up here and stuff like that, and the big collars and stuff. And this is my mum bought me a huge, not a Parker, off the back, because she knew this film. She bought me a Mac. So I went to fucking Crocodile Park in primary school after Christmas, looking like Inspector frigging Gadget with my based off the dress code of this. I'll never forgive her for that. But the soundtrack's absolutely brilliant. The title track is Psychedelic Furs, Pretty in Pink, and they did fuck all after this song, but it's really good. And it's John Hughes comedy. Anyone who's seen a John Hughes film, you get the popcorn out, you're gonna have loads of laughs. He was very consistent in John Hughes.
I'm so glad you've chosen a John Hughes film, because I thought it would have been wrong if we'd have done an 80s top 5. I know we go with our own choices, but John Hughes, he was an important filmmaker in the 80s. He was telling those sort of young teenage comedies where you're going through puberty, you're going through coming of age, yeah, exactly. 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, the Breakfast Club,
Ferris Bueller's
Day Off. Yeah, I think he was behind a lot of them. Home Alone, I know it's different. It's a different type of film. I don't think he directed it, but he produced it. So yeah, he was very much an important voice in the 80s. Usually set in Chicago, his films. That's where he was from. He had the same sort of the Brat Pack. He used to like to work with the likes of Molly Ringwald and Emilio Estevez, and there was certain, Rob Lowe, those type of actors often came up in his films. And it's he is one of the most important filmmakers of the 1980s, and his films are some of the most important. Sometimes it's easy to dismiss those types of films and just look at them as sort of old teenage fluff, but they're not.
Yeah.
You've summed it up there. Those are films that when you're that age, they say something to you. You're going through those sorts of things yourself. They're addressing issues that you're dealing with, and they are well-made, well-acted, well-crafted films as well. This isn't just sort of Channel 5, Monday afternoon budget films that are just terrible. These are well-made films, and the way of watching it's just, it's easy when you're a little bit older or you're looking back to dismiss them. But no, I think John Hughes is a great filmmaker. I really do. I think he's a guy that tells a certain type of story better than anyone. He really does, and it's a talent, that, because it's not easy to get into the mind of a teenage 15-year-old girl who's going through all these emotions, but he always does, and he always gets the great performances from these young actors as well, and these actresses who are, this isn't like Grease where you've got 34-year-old Stockard Channing playing a 17-year-old or whatever. These are actors and actresses who are around that age, and he always gets great performances from them as well. I've always got a lot of time for John Hughes.
Yeah, I mean, look at the films he did. I mean, in the 80s, National Lampoons, he did. He written, he didn't direct it. Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, like I said, Some Kind of Wonderful, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, Home Alone, Beethoven. So he knew what he was doing, but to be able to, it's one thing to be able to do a coming of age film, but to be able to do a coming of age film from different angles and hit it out of the park every single time. Do you know what I mean? With different actors, that is a talent. But I also, can you imagine being part of that Brat Pack in the 80s? They must have had some laughs, them. Do you know, what are you doing? Oh, yeah, getting the new John Hughes film. Oh, yeah, where are we going? We'll go Chicago again. Oh,
well, this is it, mate. He launched his careers of so many.
Oh, yeah.
So many actors. And it's funny because, like, you know, you mentioned Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And obviously, it was Matthew Broderick in that, wasn't it? But Anthony Michael Hall, who was in The Breakfast Club, John Hughes offered him that part and he turned it down. He said, I wanted to get away from those sort of films. And I don't think his career ever recovered. He never quite, you know, Matthew Broderick did it. It was a massive hit.
Yeah.
And Anthony Michael Hall, you know, he had some good film parts and stuff, but he never was a major star even in the way that Matthew Broderick was, really. So, yeah, John Hughes, you know, there's a whole host of 80s actors who owe a lot of their career to him, and the way he sort of gave him these wonderful films to be in with great scripts and real emotionally challenging roles as well. This, you know, like I said earlier, it wasn't just fluffy nonsense. This was sort of, could be quite gritty and harrowing, some of the stuff, as well as being able to make people laugh, because you mentioned some of those films there. Uncle Buck, incredibly funny film. Planes, Trains and Automobiles, great films, you know, funny films. Actors loved him as well, you know. I was watching the making of Home Alone the other day, and John Candy got paid the same as, you know, the guy that delivers the pizza in Home Alone?
Yeah.
John Candy got paid the same as him, because John Candy took minimum wage or whatever to be in the film, just as a favour.
Really?
To John Hughes. Yeah, I know Chris Columbus directed it, but because he was mates with John Hughes was like, you know, I can get you in this film, I've got no budget. And he was like, I'll do it for nothing. But legally, you can't do it for nothing, you have to be paid. So he was like, well, just pay me the minimum amount of money you can physically pay an actor in this film. So John Candy did it for like $1,200 or whatever. Because he loved working with him, and he passed away, didn't he, John Hughes, in the 90s, I think, or maybe in the 90s. Sorry, forgive me, I'm not sure when, but he passed away, and it's sad as well. It's sad, obviously, he passed away, but it's a bit of a loss to American cinema because there was no one quite like him who could make those type of films as well as he could.
Yeah, I mean, you look at American Pie and stuff like that. They tried to copy it, I suppose, the blueprint of the John Hughes film, but I think they sort of verged on it was more crass and shock, I think, especially, you know, in Shagging the Pie and whatnot. So, but I think the John Hughes one, just the subtle balances, and like you said, it's the comedies can be serious films. You know what I mean? People do laugh in real life, but there is serious shit going on, and I think that's what his magic was, that he was able to balance both of them, really.
No, it was, you know, you've nailed it. And there's certain issues that you're going through as a kid, and you think you're the only one, and you're a kid there from Longsight, whatever, watching a film set in America, and you relate to certain things. That's, you know, that's one of the great things about films. One of the great things about the films that John Hughes made. He made him for a certain age group.
Yeah,
but, you know, there's so many people I know that sort of watched John Hughes films in the 80s and thought, oh, you know, I'm going through what he's going through. I'm going through what she's going through. And, you know, he was so relatable to everyone. And it's just a talent, that it really is. It's a talent, and, you know, he's sorely missed. So I'm glad you picked one of his films, because, like I said, I'm going to talk about the 80s. You need to talk about John Hughes. 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. The next one, I was toying with this for ages, right? I even mentioned it at the beginning and said, oh, we're going to have better ones. But I just think if you're going to have an 80s film, you've got to have this in. And even though at first I was going to pick an Oliver Stone film like Wall Street or Platoon, because they're two films, but I've gone with the old favourite. I've gone with Die Hard. I know it's not an Oliver Stone film, but I've just gone with it because it's a film that always pops up. It's always on the telly at Christmas. We can have an argument about whether it's a Christmas film another time.
Hey, someone phone Tom on.
Yeah, he loves that argument. Die Hard is a Christmas film. But it is, and it's one of those films that sort of, it sort of set the bar in many ways for the action film. It kicked it on a little bit. And, you know, it's, yes, all right, it's a Bruce Willis vehicle, but this was the first action film that had so many different things in it that have been copied. Bruce Willis wasn't the hunky Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone type. He was a sort of everyman. That was his thing. He was like, he played this, obviously, the cop from New Jersey, or who works in New York, who was thrown into this scenario. The action sequences, they were great, and he set the mold, the helicopter and all the rest of it, and the explosions. But for me, I mean, the one thing that sort of makes this film for me is just Alan Rickman.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I love Alan Rickman is in this film.
Yeah.
So much. He completely steals this film. Forget about it. Forget about anything else. The action, Bruce Willis. They're all playing second fiddle to Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. He's just the best baddie you will ever see. He's probably the best baddie for me in the history of cinema. I know that's a bold statement, but he's just fucking brilliant. He really is. He's got everything. He's charming. He's funny. He's evil. He's sinister. He's just he's got the whole lot, and you just completely buy into it. And it's mad that he ended up in this film, because he was like a classic sort of like classic actor. Been, I don't think he wasn't like a blue blooded type of person. I think he was quite but he'd been like radar and that sort of thing.
Yeah, theatre
training. And he sort of landed this role in this blockbuster as this baddie, and absolutely just nails it. And he's almost like the benchmark now. Whenever you've got a baddie, he's like, is he as good as Alan Rickman was in Die Hard? It's what you always look to. And then loads of films afterwards had English baddies, didn't they? That was the thing. It was like, we've got a baddie, let's get an English guy in to play the baddie. And it carried that on, but no one did it as well as Alan Rickman did. And it was massively sad time when he passed away not long ago. Most people remember him as Professor Snape in this generation anyway. But for me, he'll always be Hans Gruber. And that film, which is a good film anyway, it's a great film, enjoyable. It does what it says on the tin. It's an action film, but it's probably one of the best action films. But Alan Rickman steals it. But you know me, Scott, I hate to keep repeating myself, but I will anyway. I love a good cameo. And this is probably a little bit more than a cameo, but there's a guy who's in the Breakfast Club called Paul Gleason. He plays the Deputy Chief of Police, Dwayne C. Robinson.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
And he's just fucking comedy gold. He's a dickhead, right? He's just an idiot. And he's like trying to make sense of this situation that's going on, getting completely outwitted by Alan Rickman, who's just running rings around him. And he's just dismissing Bruce Willis, who's trying to help. And he's got some of the best lines in the film. And Paul Gleason's just brilliant. And it's so funny. And it's got that. It's got the comedy. It's got the dramas, relative drama. And also, as like most of these films, it tells you a little bit about 80s life and the rise of capitalism, the sort of how it all became about the money and that sort of thing. And Nakatomi Tower sort of symbolizes that in a way. And there's the guys at Elliot, the guy who's just an idiot, symbolizes a lot of like the greed, and he's snorting coke, which was a big thing in the 80s as well. And there's that sort of thing, and it gives you that sort of slice of what was going on at the time in America. But at the heart of it, you've got obviously Bruce Willis, who's probably never been better than he is as John McClane. It's a role that suits him. I don't think Bruce Willis is the most talented of actors, but he plays this role really well. He's not asked to do a lot, but he does it. He sort of kicks on a little bit from his moonlighting television days.
Moonlight, and there's another one we were talking about. What we were talking about the other night? Midnight Caller. Moonlight. Yeah,
Midnight Caller. Yeah, Moonlight was around that time when these sorts of things, and he was obviously he made him a star. But this film kicked it on, and I'm glad it was him as a sort of everyman type lead rather than you sort of, because you got Arnie in the film. He's almost like a superhero already, isn't he? Because he's so big. You've got Stallone, he's another one who you always know he's going to beat up the baddie. But in this film, there's times when Bruce Willis gets beat up. There's times when Bruce Willis is really struggling. He spends half the film barefoot. Do you know what I mean? But he's really good in it. But for me, every scene that Alan Rickman's in, he's just different class. And it's just for him alone, I've just got to include this film in it, because I just love that performance so much. It's one of my favorite performances. And you talk about action films or Christmas films, you got to talk about Die Hard, and it's up there with any of them. So I'm going to stick Die Hard in as my next choice.
Yeah, I absolutely love Alan Rickman. I think he died about 4 years ago, didn't he? But I loved him in Prince of Thieves. He played where he plays like a camp sheriff of Nottingham. Absolutely brilliant in it. I mean, it's not hard to steal a scene against Kevin Costner, but I thought it was fantastic in that. And again with the Professor Snape, arguably I would say he was probably the character out of all of it that was probably the most lasting. I've only read a few of the Harry Potter books, but he was bang on the money of what you'd expect Professor Snape to be. But, yeah, amazing actor and a tragic loss when he passed away. Right, I'm gonna open myself up to get a load of shit on social media. That's what I'm going to do now.
That doesn't happen. What are you talking about? No one gives anyone shit on social media. Stop telling lies. That's never happened.
I've been getting loads. Since I've been talking more about equality and races recently, I've been getting loads of shit.
Right, so what's wrong with you? Equality?
Yeah.
Jesus, next you'll be saying you want equal rights for all different races. Sort your head out. Get a grip.
Right. 1963, this film's set in, and this young girl goes to the Catskills Mountains with her parents.
My missus, you just redeemed yourself, by the way, with the Twilight comment. My missus
pretty much, yeah.
Happy with you.
Pretty much, this would be like where they go in the Catskills would be like us going to Bognor Regis, Butlins, and she don't want to go. She hates it, and of course, I'm talking about Dirty Dancing, and then Baby, her nickname's Baby, in it, but played by Jennifer Grey. Falls in love with an older. And I try to find the age difference before, because it's very sort of Tim Westwood, isn't it? The way that he sort of letches onto this. Do you not think there's a bit of an age difference?
No, I don't know. I think because Swayze, he gets away with it, doesn't he? Because it's him.
It's not as bad as Grease. That's for a fact.
No,
the ages. I wasn't saying Patrick Swayze is in any way inclined like Tim Westwood. I was just saying the age gap. But yeah, so he falls in love, and this obviously, if you had a younger sister or a mum, there's no way anyone got through the 80s without seeing Dirty Dancing. And I'm going to do a bit of a revisionism of it now. That's right, revisioning. But we revisit
against the consensus, whatever.
Yeah, against the consensus. This film had some major issues when you're looking at it. There was teen pregnancy and abortion in there. There was a huge class divide between the working staff and how they were looked upon by the welfare, which again was a great theme that ran through quite a lot of the 80s films. When we're talking about the John Hughes ones in Pretty in Pink, again with the Coppola thing, and you were talking about the rise of capitalism in the 80s. I think that a lot of the films during the 80s shown that, even though this was set in 1963. The teen pregnancy, the dividing class, where was it up to, and then the pressure from parents trying to tell you what you're supposed to do with your life. So again, I know people will see Dirty Dancing as a musical. The soundtrack of Dirty Dancing is one of the best soundtracks. Take away I've had the time of my life. At least every track on that soundtrack has been on a Scorsese soundtrack, has been on a Tarantino soundtrack, been on True Romance. You've got the Shirelles, Otis Redding's, I think's on there. It's absolutely brilliant. Just take away that Bill Medley track, and it's a fantastic soundtrack. But it was so close to the soundtrack of this film not to have any music, because they didn't have any budget, and that's why it was all unknown 1960s doo-wop doo-wop songs that were placed on it. And they actually when I've had time of my life, when that was written for the film, they approached Lionel Richie to actually sing it,
right?
And like with Donna Summer, and then they both like who's in it? And went Patrick Swayze, never heard of him. Jennifer Grey, never heard of her. And he just binned it off. And then Bill Medley, who I think he was a surviving member of the Righteous Brothers, the year after Dirty Dancing had come out, I think it sold 200 million copies, like unprecedented numbers, the soundtrack of that. And he said, I had so many gold discs and plaques that I was giving them away for Christmas to family members, because I just kept getting so many through. Can you imagine Lionel Richie? Lionel Richie's not poor, but the one that got away. But when you look back at it, I know it's like a chick flick or whatever everyone will say, but the soundtrack's fantastic. Everybody wanted to date Jennifer Grey. They wanted to be Patrick Swayze. Everyone had gone through that teen sort of romance during that time. And I think Dirty Dancing is a fantastic film.
You know what? And me and Mrs. always argue about it. I've not sat down and watched it all the way through. I've seen like bits of it so many different times. And we watched this documentary on the making of it the other day. Well, a few weeks ago, funnily enough. And it's mad because she's talking about that it was made, they had no budget. They were sort of struggling for money, and they're struggling for a song. And then Patrick Swayze said, I've written this song. And She's Like the Wind. And he played it, and the producers were like, this is an amazing song. And they were dancing to like some of the dancing scenes, they were dancing to like a metronome at points because they didn't have any music that they knew they were going to use. And I remember watching it, yeah. And it's funny, you know, you talk about it's set in 1963, which is symbolic because that's the year Kennedy was shot. Towards the end of the year, she's very idealistic, isn't she? From what I remember of Baby, she's quite, you know, into civil rights and stuff. She's quite an idealistic.
I mean, she's very much going again. You can see because, I think that in some ways that her dad actually looks a bit like Nixon.
Right.
Yeah, so you can see that you can sort of, when you look back, you can see the playing off against each other. And a dad is a right horrible bastard right until the very end when he goes, "I'm wrong. I say I was wrong," which you'd never get Nixon to say. But yeah, go on. Sorry,
no, you're right, mate. And it sort of symbolises that, doesn't it? Like that, because 63, I think, always holds a lot of those connotations because everyone knows that's the year that Kennedy was shot. For a lot of people, we felt like there was a little sort of loss of innocence there in many ways. She sees that in some sides because she's sort of dragged into the real world where, you know, her father, is it the abortion or whatever goes wrong or something?
Yeah.
She goes from being this kid to having to deal with adult life. And, in many ways, America, that's what happens. You know, a lot of Americans say that when Kennedy was shot, it felt like a shifting point in their lives or whatever. So, yeah, and it's, you know, no matter what, whether you think it's a chick flick or not, there's so many sort of well-remembered lines in it, and the one about Baby in the corner, nobody puts Baby in the corner. Everyone can quote. I've heard that millions of times, even though I've never seen the film all the way through. And you know what, my miss always says something about you carried a watermelon as well every time I buy melons from the shopping, because the kids love watermelon. Yeah, so
I carried the watermelon. I'm not having it. Everybody who's watched this, like I said, these are just 80s films that have had a massive importance in my life. Everybody has tried to do that scene where she runs and probably failed pissed at a wedding where she jumps and you're trying to catch someone and it doesn't, and it all goes Pete Tong. Everybody's tried to do that. I think Dirty Dancing, and they have, aren't they? In terms of an 80s film of having impact, I think Dirty Dancing is probably one of the cultural impact of spinal injuries from the 80s. Yeah,
it's probably led to a few divorces as well, where people tried it with the missus and they end up breaking the back or whatever, and then you've had a row.
Well, you know one way to end.
I love the fact that I watched the making of it, and like Patrick Swayze, he'd actually put on his thing that he couldn't dance on his CV because he didn't want to be a dad. He could dance, but he didn't want to do dancing films. And his knee had gone. He had a knee injury, but he persevered, and because they really wanted him for the role, and he did it. And it's just, he sort of kept it all together. And there's the film, when they're on the log. I was watching the making of it.
Where the barefoot dancing on the log. Yep.
And they said like they were going to set up some way of doing it so they wouldn't actually be on the log on the lake, and he was having none of it. And he was like, "No, we're going to do it real, and I'm going to do it." And then like the first day of shooting, he fell off and like nearly broke his ankle. He was like, they had to hold postpone shooting for 2 weeks or whatever while he recovered. Because he was like a proper sort of, even though he's a dancer, like he was a masculine type of guy. No, but again, 80s films, you've got to look at Dirty Dancing. Love Patrick Swayze. Always, whenever you watch these documentaries on the making of this or Ghost or whatever, everyone always says what a great guy he was. Always great with other actors, other actresses. Just a good guy. And this film it is even though it's set in the 60s, it is a proper slice of. It's one of those films. Sorry, that's. It's seminal with the 80s, and it's a seminal film for the 80s where everyone, it launched the career of Patrick Swayze into the stratosphere. The soundtrack, as you say, was massive. Jennifer Grey probably never really got the success off the back of it. Well, she didn't that she perhaps expected or deserved. But no, it is one of those sort of monumental 80s films, and like you say, everyone loves it really deep down, even the people that pretend they don't.
Thank you very much, Jay. That's that. Throw me one up there for protecting me on.
Even last for long sight, love it.
Yeah, that's it. Let it go.
I've got it's my last one now. For my fifth and final pick. It's probably I'll say this the last because out of all the films I've picked, two reasons. One, it's the best one. I think in terms of the quality of the film, it is the best film that I've picked, and also it's extremely relevant now. It's probably just as relevant now as when it was made, which, as me and you've spoken about before, is always a test of a good film. And it's Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing.
Mate,
just an absolutely superb film on all levels. The plot is basically it's set around a neighborhood. I think it's in New York. Brooklyn. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No,
it's in New York, in Brooklyn. and it's just on one of the hottest days of the year. And it's just this pizza shop in the middle of this black neighborhood. The pizza shop's run by Italian Americans. Spike Lee plays, I think, is it Mookie? I forget his name.
Yep, Mookie. Yeah,
who is the pizza shop delivery guy, and he just walks around the neighborhood delivering the pizzas. And there's loads of different characters. It's a real ensemble piece. You know, you've got the likes of Samuel L. Jackson, you've got Danny Aiello, you've got John Turturro, you've got a fantastic performance by Ossie Davis, who plays like an old drunk who's in the neighborhood. Ruby Dee's wife's in it as well. His real life wife, that is. And it's just the sort of the film builds and builds and builds. It deals with themes such as racism and sort of, it mainly deals with that throughout the film, really, and sort of racial attitudes. John Turturro plays a great part in it, who's like this racist guy, but he plays him in the right way, because if you're going to play someone racist and you just play him as a one-note horrible person, you're missing a point, because
you don't see the sort of backstory or the context to why someone's racism.
Even someone who's racist is a human being and will have traits within them that you can relate to and can sympathize with. You can have a racist who loves his family. You can have a racist who, you know, is a loving son towards his dad or whatever. And John Turturro gets on that. And when he explains about how he's thinking, because they have this argument, and he's like, Spike Lee's like, you've got a bad attitude, you're racist, and he's like, but your favorite basketball player is Magic Johnson, who's black. You know, your favorite singer is Prince, although he argues it's Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Like, and he tries to explain it. It's like, when I'm watching them, it's like they're not black, and it's really fascinating, and it is. And it culminates at the end, again, if it's a plot spoiler, where there's a riot in the streets, which, mate, it couldn't be more relevant if it
I'm not, mate, telling you.
Do you know what I mean? This could be set in 2002. It could be set this week, and it won't look out of place. And you know, the whole sort of neighborhood almost burns down, and they have a little sort of race riot. It's, as I said, ensemble piece, some fantastic performance. Ossie Davis, I love that guy. He's like an older actor in this film. He died about 10 years ago, I think. But he was a civil rights sort of activist. He was a famous black actor in the 60s and 70s. He actually did the eulogy at Malcolm X's funeral.
Wow.
And if you watch the film Malcolm X, which is also directed by Spike Lee, Ossie gets Ossie Davis to do his eulogy again as a voiceover.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really moving, mate. I was almost moved to tears when I was reading up on it before, because it's so moving and sad as well. But no, he's fantastic in it. And you know me, I love a good cameo, and it's got a cameo by an actor that you'll love as well. Frankie Vincent is in it, and he's got one scene, and it's one of the funniest scenes you'll ever see. You know, Frankie Vincent obviously played Phil Leotardo in The Sopranos. And he gets his car soaked because it's red hot, and they're messing about with the fire hydrant, and it's just hilarious. He's hilarious in it, and it's a nice bit of, as you've mentioned there, there's some comic bits in all these films, and this is quite a serious film in the themes it's dealing with, but there's lots of like laughs in it as well as dealing with the serious issues. And you know, I don't use this word lightly, Scott, you know I don't, but it's a fucking masterpiece. It is.
Yeah.
It's an absolute 10 out of 10 film. It's one that needs to be seen. Everything about it is right. The acting, direction, the dialogue, the themes it deals with, the way it deals with them. It's an important film, man. You need to see it, honestly. Spike Lee, who's one of my favorite directors, and I think is a director that, you know, will be looked back upon as one of the best from the late 90s, 80s, early 90s, just a real top director. You know, he's probably never made a better film than this, and that says a lot, because he's made a lot of good films, but it's superb. And you could watch this now and you could think, fucking hell, that's set, you know, that's week. Do you know what I mean?
It definitely is relevant. It's definitely as relevant now as it was. Is it 89? I think
it just scrapes in. It was 89. It came out. Which when I was thinking, I'm sure Do the Right Thing is the 80s, because I knew if it was, it'd be getting in there. And Spike Lee acts in it as well. I think you said at the beginning, Spike Lee actually plays a central character, Mookie. And it's got one of the biggest crush that I had in the 90s in Rosie Perez. Almost missed her out, mate. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Oh, mate,
Rosie Perez. I think that was a debut. I think it's a film debut.
Amazing in it. I proper crush on Rosie Perez. And then, of course, one of my favorite characters in Do the Right Thing is Radio Raheem, walking around playing Public Enemies, Fight the Power all the way through, and he has a mate. Yeah. And he has
the thing of, and Giancarlo Esposito's in it as a sort of activist type character, and there's loads of little funny lines in it. There's some real poignant scenes in it as well. There's the scene where they're burning down the neighborhood, and this is really fascinating because this dealt with a lot of things that were going on in the 80s and 90s as well, especially in the 90s in the LA riots. And there's the Korean shop owners who are defending their shop, and they go for that shop, and the Korean shop owners are saying, we're black, we're like you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and there was a big sort of divide with the Korean community in the 90s, especially. And I'm trying to just remember the name. The girl that got shot, forgive me, by the Korean. I can't remember her name. There was a girl. Forgive me about this. There was a girl, Latasha Harlins. That was it. Sorry, who was shot in a Korean shop. So as she was leaving, by the shopkeeper, because the shopkeeper thought she stole something she hadn't, and it caused that and Rodney King just set everything off. So this was before that, obviously, but it sort of deals with those tensions, and it just deals with so much, and it does it in such a good way as well, and a way that sort of it doesn't ever come across as sort of forced, preachy, or you've shoehorned that in to try and deal with that issue, or you've been a bit ham-fisted with that. He gets it just right, Spike Lee. There's no better director than dealing with this sort of thing and telling this kind of story about racial tensions, and he builds up to it as well, and it all builds up, and you can see everyone's point of view. Even the racist person in it isn't a caricature. You might not agree with him, but you can sort of see why he thinks like that, and that's a real skill, that man. That really is. And I think that's a testament to the acting. It's a testament to directing, and Spike Lee deserves credit. And I'll just end on this. The one thing that annoys me, you had the Oscars So White thing that went on a few years ago. This was fucking robbed. This was robbed. Don't get me started. He got 2 nominations, one for Danny Aiello and one for Spike Lee for Best Adapted Screenplay. He didn't win either. I think he lost out to Driving Miss Daisy or something in fucking film. But for him not to get nominated for Best Film or Best Director is a fucking disgrace. And anyone who's on that Oscar Academy Committee or whatever that year should hang their head in shame, because this was a seminal film. This is it's just so important film, made in such a great way as well. It's a fantastic film, and for it to be overlooked to just get 2 nominations is a farce, because it's one of the best films of all time.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think Spike Lee himself said when he was up for nomination for the what was the movement that said it was it white what was it Oscar So White, So White, and he goes, again I lose out every time I lose out on an Oscar. Some motherfuckers driving someone else somewhere, because he lost out to the Green Book, didn't he, which is pretty much and it's 2 people drive around the southern states of America. But I mean, I'm glad you ended on that, because it couldn't be more relevant now, and it is such a fantastic film, and probably I would say out of all the ones we've mentioned tonight, it's probably aged the best out of all of them. You could just the way it's shot, because it didn't fall into the type where I think all the films that we've mentioned tonight, there were the sort of themes or the makeup or the effects of the the blockbusters or the buddy movies and stuff like that. They all very much feel like 80s films, but this film now could be it could be released this week because of the way Spike Lee actually shoots his films.
Do you know what? It's mad as well. It's just dawned on me. Yeah, you're right. How does Radio Raheem die?
He does, doesn't it?
How does he die?
Did he die by a cop?
Choked to death by a police officer. How fucking mad's that? It just dawned on me then when you mentioned him. That's what sparks the riot. You've got this film from 31 years ago, and the catalyst for the riot is this innocent guy is choked to death by a police officer, literally, while everyone's watching. And that sets it all off. And that's fucking crackers, ain't it? And do you know what? I didn't even think about that bit of it. I just when you mentioned it, I thought, what kicks off the riot? And it's that. It's this choke him to death with the truncheon. And and here we are, 31 years later, and it's we're still dealing with these things and these issues and having these same arguments, unfortunately. But that's so Spike Lee. These issues come around; they're not new. And he tells his story, and he knows how to tell it. You talk about the way he shot it. You're right. The way he shot it, it does sort of fit. He doesn't look dated. Even the fashions, it's weird, because even the fashions now, the trainers and stuff they're wearing.
Oh, the big trainers and the loud shirt. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it doesn't, like, all the films we've chosen up, other than this one and Dirty Dancing, obviously, which was set in the 60s, they all show the 80s, and they're very much films of their time, and you can look at it and go, that's the 80s. But like you say, it could almost be set in any era. Or it could be set now and it fit in, and it's just amazing. And if you've watched, if you listen to it or watch this and you've not seen any of my films, the one film I recommend you go and watch is this one.
I agree with him. And then Dirty Dancing. I'd just like to leave the note that Rosie Perez has aged better than Ralph Macchio. This is happening.
I've had a stinker there.
He'll be coming fucking, he'll be on your head now, waxing that on. Right, this has been Scotty and Motty doing our top 5 films. We'll be back as soon as possible. Thank you. Over 500 subscribers now, and we're buzzing with that. So thank you, everybody that's been getting in touch and commenting. Let us know what your top 5 films are, whether you agree or disagree with any of ours. Please subscribe, tell your mates, and like. We shall see you soon.